Hello. How you doing? I got the question. Were you ever afraid to raise your prices? And I want to laugh hysterically. Okay, let me bring up my, my notes. I want to laugh at this because it is bringing up my memory of getting my first one-on-one dissertation clients. Many of you have heard me say that my first client booked with me for $56. Yes, a 5 and a 6 for months, weekly, sometimes daily one-on-one coaching to help her write and defend her entire dissertation. Now, for those of you who don't understand the world of PhD and what's required, okay, a dissertation, imagine a 200-page book, but it's not just the writing of said book. It is, you also have to do an entire research project, which requires multiple moving parts, a lot of planning, a lot of strategy. So you got to complete that, and then you have to write a 200-page book about it to make it really simple and general. And this person was able to sign up with me for $56. But you know what? I love this story because, we all got a beginning. We all start somewhere. But I just want to go back. I want to go back to that time. I want to take you back to Labor Day. Yes, Labor Day of 2017. I was a newly minted doctor. I had graduated in May of 2017. Okay, I had did something that most people wouldn't even dare to even think about doing, first of all. If you're not a doc student and you don't even know anything about this life, just know that I did something that usually takes people on average 18 to 24 months. I did it in 2 months. And so this is me after that. This is after graduation, after fortunately finding a job, moving back closer to home. I was living in Milwaukee, which is about an hour from Chicago. And I was more committed than ever than being like, this business thing has to work, because I was in this job that I was excited about, but wasn't, because in my delusional brain, if you don't know, I will tell people that I have property in Delulu land. Like, if you need somebody to be delusional with you, you should come talk to me, because I'm like, listen, we are here to dream, and I am going to dream as big as possible. And so in my brain, my delusional brain, as a third year student, was like, I'm going to start a business, and by the time I graduate, that business is going to fully support me. Now, that's not such a delusional dream that it's not possible. But for me, who didn't know what I was doing, who didn't really have anyone there helping me, guide me, who had no idea what the process looked like, that was real delusional for me to think that in 2 years that I would be able to not only start a business, but get it to the point where I could fully support myself without having to go get another job in higher ed, because y'all, did not want to. By the time I got to the end of my first year of my doc program, I was like, oh, this is some BS. They lied. They lied to me, to you, to everybody. Nobody cares about students. This is a business. Higher ed is a business like any other business who don't care about their people. Okay, I'm going to save that rant for later. But the real reason why this was a delusional goal, because you can absolutely build a business in 2 years that supports you. Why it was delusional for me is I was afraid to show up on the internet. And many of you who are listening, you are afraid to show up on the internet too. Okay? You do what I did back then. You start posting little quotes, right? You post anything that doesn't have your face or your voice to it. And it took me, days of going back and forth in my mind about just make the content in Canva. And then I would spend hours and hours and hours in Canva. I would spend hours playing around with Canva. And Canva was new then, okay? 2017, Canva had just came out. It is not the Canva of today. And I was still spending hours designing and playing around. I was spending hours playing on my website and like trying out colors and quote unquote getting my branding together. I would spend hours in my notebook coming up with ideas and things I wanted to say. I did everything but show my face or have my voice on social media. Now, you know what? Let me give myself a little bit more credit. Okay, to my credit, I did start a podcast. Now, nobody was listening. Okay, nobody was. It was called Naturally Surviving. I had a good solid like 30 episodes before I had switched over to the dissertation business, and I called it Finish Your Dissertation, I believe. Nope, it was another name before that. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back in the archives and figure out what the first name was. But the original URL, if you go and look at it, like the RSS feed, I believe it still says Naturally Surviving because I'm still on that same one. And I'm over like 300 episodes. Anyway. Okay, back to my delusion of thinking that I'm going to be able to have a business that fully supports me by the time I graduate when I was too afraid to show up. I like hired an entire private coach to help me build a business. I was too afraid and she was too exasperated to keep helping me show up. She was so annoyed and done with me. Looking back on it, I get it, girl. Ooh, I get it. I think I recently just saw that she thinks taking an indefinite break on business because just with her, like it was just the ups and downs of business and the pressure of it was not good for mental health. I got stories too, but I still have a fond place in my heart for her because she got me as a new person trying to make a business. Anyway, so let me fast forward. So I go through finishing my dissertation, doing all the things associated with that. I graduate. I moved with $20. No, I did a GoFundMe. Once I got the job in Milwaukee, I had no money, y'all. I was so broke. This is important for the story. I was so broke that I had to swallow my pride and do a GoFundMe on Facebook. And fortunately, people gave me money and I had $200. And that was enough for me to drive from Georgia to Milwaukee. Yeah, to just drive there and get there and eat for a week until I got my first paycheck. The moving expenses, I was able to finagle some things and get it covered through the job. Oh, that was one of the worst moving experiences because I didn't even get my stuff for 3 months, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, that $200 got me there and I was able to eat. Times were hard. That's an understatement. Okay. But I was so excited about my fancy apartment that I signed the lease for sight unseen. I just looked at the pictures on the internet, but it was downtown. That's all that matters is that it was downtown Milwaukee. Y'all, I get to this apartment, and something you need to know about me is that windows and sunlight are the most important things in a home for me. The most important. But my brain at that time was so caught up on I need to get out of Georgia. I need to survive. I need to be able to get to this new job. I fortunately got a job with that was the only option I had. Because y'all, maybe this is a different episode, but the level of burnt out I was in 2017, the summer of 2017, we gonna need a whole episode to unpack it. But I had enough spoons, if you will, to just get an apartment in Milwaukee. And I was just so excited. I was like, this is gonna be me. I'm doctor now. I'm finally gonna be able to live out my dreams. And was so grateful for this apartment complex approving me as a tenant that I didn't think to ask certain questions maybe, and the way that they had the pictures made it seem like, oh, this was the apartment. It had a bunch of sunlight. Y'all, this apartment had 2 windows, but the window was looking at a brick wall from the building itself. So I got a little teensy piece of sunlight, and sunlight is mildly because it's the Midwest, and in wintertime what's the sun don't even exist. Okay, this apartment y'all was so tiny. Like, think of a studio, and whatever you're thinking of a studio cut in half. Like, I remember my friend Aaron coming to visit me, and I just remember the look on his face was like, this what you wanted? I'm like, yeah. Because at that point, it's like I'm locked into a lease. There's nothing I can do about it. Yeah, I'm gonna have to make the best of it. Yeah, I had no money for furniture, and I had to start completely from scratch because up to this point, I was working in housing, and when you work in university housing, they give you a furnished apartment. So I didn't have any furniture moving. I just had whatever stuff. And I remember scouring Facebook Marketplace looking for furniture. Like I was able to find like this shelf thing for a TV for $15. And I found a bed frame for $50. Come to find out though, there were some pieces missing, but that's neither here nor there. My brother comes and visits me and he's like, why did you pick this place? I'm like, listen, I need everybody to stop asking me questions. I figured out a place to live where I've never had to look for an apartment before. I'd never had to do any of this stuff before and nobody helped me. And I told y'all I didn't know how to do it. But it's hard for people to comprehend being what I was 30, 31 and people which me don't know how. I worked for a college or a university my entire teens. I never had to go look for an apartment because it was always connected to my job. But anyway, and he was like, why are you walking like that? I'm like, my feet hurt. And then he like, you know how you check the shoes to see for little kids, you're trying to see how close their toe is to the top of the shoe. Okay, my toes were scrunched up. And he was like, so you got holes in your shoes. They don't fit. What is happening? And okay, let me just say, like, I'm laughing right now. In the moment, I did not know how bad things were. I did not know. Looking back on it, I just feel so much compassion and gratitude to that version of me. So much compassion because she was fighting. Okay, fighting. But I did not know in that moment, but I just kept looking on the face of everybody who I hadn't seen. I had been in Georgia for 6 years. Like I hadn't seen really, like I've seen people here and there, but this was the first time I'm spending significant time with like family and like more childhood friends than before. And I just remember the look he had on his face and he was like, we just gotta go get you some shoes. And he bought me some shoes, y'all, because he was like, why would you do this? Why wouldn't you call me? Why would you start a GoFundMe? And I just kept looking at him like, what do you mean? Why didn't I call you? I talked to you and I told you what was going on. He was like, yeah, but you didn't tell me it was this. And this is one of these problems I have. Now that I'm understanding more about my neurodivergence, I understand why this is happening, but I'm often confused why I say a thing. I say, hey, like I would call my family regularly and be like, hey, I'm struggling as a PhD student. Hey, I don't have any money. And then they would say, oh, you'll be okay. You got it. And then we fast forward to this conversation with my brother about why my shoes don't fit and I got holes in them. And he like, why you didn't tell me this? It was this bad. And I said, were you not on the phone when I told you I had no money? He was like, I just thought you meant you didn't have no money like everybody else says it. I'm like, I don't understand. Don't the words I have no money mean I have no money? Okay. Let me come off of that. Anyway, so he like buys the shoes or whatever, and I'm just going to work. Because now I'm starting to understand. I'm coming out of my PhD haze and I'm seeing everybody's reaction. I'm starting to understand just the predicament I'm in. I'm starting to understand that, girl, you need money. Like I felt that I needed money, but I'm starting to understand just how bad things were. So this is late August with the whole me moving, brother, whatever. By September, because right, Labor Day, my brother was like, you should come. I'm going to do a cookout for Labor Day. It's also my dad's birthday around that time. And I remember being at his house and he was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, playing around in Canva for my business because I got to post on the internet. Now, to be fair to me, I was posting more consistently on the internet, but they were still quotes and whatnot, whatever. We all have to start. And he's like, oh, okay. And I'm like trying to show him and whatnot. And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a Labor Day special. I'm going to, because you know what it is? Clearly my prices are too much. I think at the time, it's $200 maybe was what my price was. Yeah, because if I did a 40% discount, Oh, my price was $200. I think it was like 3 months of coaching. And y'all, if you would ask me, I would tell you that was so high. I can't charge anybody that much. But you got to think about the reason why I told you all this background is because where I was coming from, $200 was so much money for me. $200 is how I got from Georgia to Milwaukee. So like $200 is life changing. And if somebody has $200, they're rich in my brain at that point. So I was like, my price is too much. I got to bring it down and then maybe somebody will want to work. I had been doing the things the people were saying at that time, which was like start an email list and get people on your email and do a podcast. And I guilted enough friends to being on my email list that it gave me more confidence to send something once a week. But then because I was doing podcasts and I was doing interviews, more people started listening. They wanted to get on my email list because email lists wasn't what they are today. Now we don't want to be on nobody's list. But then like email lists was like, ooh, and people were being supportive and they did like the interviews, right? I was giving something of value. So I just say that to say, like, I think I may have had 30 or 40 people on my email list at this time. And I said, I was sitting there on my brother's couch. I forgot what we were watching. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a birthday bundle, like holiday special. And I remember sending out the email saying, you can get 40% off if you sign up by Monday. You can save. I will work with you to finish your dissertation. And I put it out there being like, I don't even think it's going to work, but I hope it works. And I want to say maybe the next day or 2 days, I got a message that said, is this still available? I'm thinking about doing it. And I'm like, yeah, we could do it. I was so excited, but I was trying to play it cool. I'm like, we could do it. And that person signed up for $56 for the next 3 months or so, even a little bit longer, because I want to say she finished in like February. I helped her design her study. She was going back and forth from Georgia to Louisiana to collect data. She was doing a case study, which this is for my people who know what that means. And it was such a beautiful project. She was the only person, not the only, but she was one of the few students in her programs who was doing qualitative research, which is the form of research I specialize in. Most of her programs dealt with numbers. I'm all about the words and like human experience. And I helped her design. It was so beautiful. Like I still look back on that project and be like, it was such a beautiful project. And she was able to get done with ease. I remember being at work and like on my lunch breaks or after work, scheduling time with her and meeting with her. Y'all, like if I want to say hours, when I say hours were spent, if I wasn't meeting with her, I was looking over her writing and giving her feedback because she's my first client. And so, of course, like I'm going way above and beyond because I'm just so grateful that somebody wants to take a chance on me in this dissertation coaching. Because prior to this, I had a different business niche altogether. But this was my first, like, for real dissertation client. And shortly after she said yes, another person said yes. And it just kept going. Now, this original questions was scared to raise my price. Yeah, I tell you this to say yes. Because that $56, like, while I knew I was doing more work, $56, I just was having a hard time. And so for that second person who worked with me, I was like, okay, I'm going to be brave. I remember being in Starbucks right before I took the sales call. And I'm like, I'm going to be brave. And she was living in the ABE, maybe. Like she was abroad and she was studying teachers who were living abroad. And I remember like, I'm gonna be brave. I think I said I'm gonna charge 200, but then I like was like discounted it. I think it ended up being like 170 something. Again, it's a win because it's almost triple the original price. No, it is triple the original price for the first. So I was like, look at me, and worked with her, I think, to pass her exams, her qualifying exams, and start her proposal. That was a beautiful experience of meeting with her. And I just remember y'all being like, look at me, I have 2 clients. I like went from doing nothing to I have 2 clients. Like I have a client roster. I'm not laughing at myself. I'm laughing because y'all, I remember the feeling of being like, it's working, kind of. The hours and hours are paying off. But again, going above and beyond. And I want to say I got one more person to work with me before that 2017 was over. But those three people changed everything. By December of 2017, I had decided I could not stay in that apartment. Here's the thing, y'all. I had convinced some of y'all know, good friend Natasha. I had convinced Natasha, who I did not know in that moment. I said, "Hey girl, I remember you looking for a job." She also went to the University of Georgia. So I remember some such and such the first client is a mutual friend. I was like, they said that you're still looking for a job and I need an assistant director, but it's in Milwaukee. So if you're willing to come to the cold, you can, and you can live with me. Y'all, let me tell you, it makes no sense. I did not know this person and I offered them a job and to live with me. So she did. She came with her and her pig, came to Milwaukee. She drove from Athens, Georgia to Milwaukee, and we lived in that studio for maybe a week or two together. I'm laughing because this is wild. We lived in that tiny studio for 2 weeks, and then we moved to a 2-bedroom apartment. That changed everything. And I would say that is an experience that taught me how valuable your environment is, because the moment we moved into that 2-bedroom apartment, everything changed for me. Like everything. But I'm just going to stay here for right now. Everything changed though. And I just kept saying 2018 is not about to be what 2017 was. 2017, I made a couple of $100, few $100. 18, we going up. In my mind, 2018, I'm making enough money to leave this job. Spoiler alert, it took longer than that, but we'll come back to that. But I remember, I've always, at that point, I always had a coach. So there had to be someone there. But I just remember consistently getting the feedback of, you have to raise your prices. And I remember every time someone would tell me I need to raise my price, I would look at them and say, you don't understand. You do not understand who my clients are. You don't understand that they don't have the money. They don't have the resources. And I just kept telling people they don't understand. And they kept looking at me like, oh, poor Tink Tink. You don't know. You don't know. So to say I was scared, I did all of this to say I was terrified. Okay, terrified. It would be years of me being terrified to raise my prices before I raised them. Even going into 2018, because I remember Natasha, the same thing, Natasha and Aaron, I had convinced them I was going to finally do my first webinar. Finally. I had planned webinars out before. I even created all the slides before, but I could never get anyone on the webinar to actually do it. And I want to say this was January or February of 2018. I was committed that I was going to do a webinar, and I had created, I think it was the dissertation scholar. I don't know. It was this was going to be this group program, this membership, and it was going to be I kept going back and forth. Should it be $297? Should it be $250? All of that back and forth just to get to $25 a month. It's going to sign people up for $25 a month. And I remember I sent it out and I did all the email sequences that people tell you to do. And I think I had 2 or 3 people sign up. But if you know anything about webinars, you can only expect about 40% of the people who sign up to come. And what's 40% of 3 people? 0. Okay, it's a percentage of a person, but 0 for this example. And I remember begging Aaron and Natasha to come so that I could get practice. Because I was like, if I could just get some practice, it would be great. And I think 1 or 2 people did come, and I got to it. It was horrible. It was horrible. I distinctively remember this one part where you're supposed to go through here's the price of the program, and then you're supposed to do all these things that talks about the value and be like, but if you act today, you can get it for this price, right? I remember I said it like that, and I remember Aaron visibly and verbally, he just breaks out laughing. And I was so embarrassed, y'all. I was so embarrassed. And those 2 people who came one by one, they silently just got off the webinar. And I remember I'm like, well, I did it. And I wanted to cry, but at the same time, I'm like, listen, I did it. I did it. Yeah, nobody signed up, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I just kept going. I kept showing up, and eventually I got more one-on-one clients. 2018, though, I ended with $1,000. Like, yeah, I had made $1,000, and that was such a big deal. That would have meant that I had about 8 to 10 clients because I was still doing it for $200 because I was still afraid to, like, that was a big jump, right? To go from 56 to 200. And it was either like 200 or 297, I want to say, for 6 months of coaching or 3 months of coaching. I have to go back and look at my notes because I do have all my notes, but I wanted to say it was something like that. And I did all of that for 2018 because people kept just saying, you need to just practice being consistent. You need to be consistent. And I was too terrified to raise my prices. But again, if you asked me in the moment, I wouldn't have told you that it was fear. I would have told you that you just don't understand my clients. And I keep repeating this on this episode is because so many people that I work with now keep saying that, like, you don't understand, or I don't want to sell out, or it's not about, it's about the money, but it's not about the money, right? We tell ourselves all these stories that sound logical in our brain, but they really come down to fear. Me, it came down to fear. 2019, though, I think is what really started to break me out of this fear of charging more because I started to understand you did all this work in 2016, 2017, 2018, only to get to less than $1,500 after spending thousands on thousands and investing in coaches and programs and resources, right? I had invested way more than I, way more, okay, than I ever got back in those years. And so I remember getting to 2019 and being like, okay, but for real, something has to change. Like, there was a different level of hunger. I also understand now that it took me about 2 years to fully recover from the PhD program, like to physically, emotionally, mentally recover from what I put myself through. And you need to realize I did not take a break, right? This business started overlapped to the doc program. So I hadn't had a break. So it took me 2 years to just recover, to get back to baseline, to get out of that deep, burnt out state that I was in. So 2019 comes and I'm feeling more like myself. I'm in a new relationship. I am feeling more confident at my job, like feeling like, oh no, they don't know what they're doing. I literally wrote books and articles about this job. I know what I'm doing. And I was going to be teaching. I was going to be an adjunct for my first ever class as a doctor, teaching master students. I think it was a theories class or organization development class. I don't know. But it was at a different school in Wisconsin. And I just felt really good about where I was. I had also just joined this group where I think it was like the 5 a.m. club, but they were in Eastern time and I lived in Central time, which meant it was the 4 a.m. club for me. So I used to wake up at 3:30 in the morning to get up, get myself together, make my coffee, and to be in the Zoom room by 4 a.m. because you only had like a 5-minute grace period before they cut the room, like they closed the room and you couldn't go in. But we would meet Monday through Friday, 5 a.m. for them, 4 a.m. for me, for 2 hours, and we would play like motivational videos like Tony Robbins or Lisa Nichols in the background while we would all get work done. The person who was leading it, she had a product-based business, but it was just people from all over, mostly people who lived in New York. I mean, y'all can see me if you're watching this on the YouTube, but I have the biggest smile on my face because even though that shit was hard, because who is waking up at 3:30? Like, Natasha recently reminded me of this like a couple of weeks ago. She's like, you remember you used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning? Listen, girl, the things that we do for our dreams. But I have fun. Like, that time, y'all, I was locked in. I said, there is no way that 2019 is ending, okay? And I'm still come out with a couple of hundred. Like, no, we about to figure this out. And the ultimate goal was 100K because I was listening to all these podcasts that were like, you don't have a real business until you make 100K. You don't even start until then. And so I was just really fixated on this number of getting to 100K. I don't know how I thought I was going to go from 1,000 to 100, but listen, where there's a will, there's a way. And so waking up early in the morning, getting work in, I would do that from 4 to 6. Sometimes I ain't going to even hold you. I would go back to sleep from like 6 to like 7:30 and get back up and then go to work. I was staying with my boyfriend for the most part, and that was at least an hour drive one way back and forth. And I just would listen. I love that drive because I get to listen to all my business podcasts. Like, this is the phase of business where you're like, I'm listening to all the things. And I have my rotation. I have my favorites for every day of the week. And I was really like, yes, I'm going to do the mindset work to increase my prices. And I did. To my credit, I did. Instead of charging, what did I say, like 200, and I still don't even think it was a full 200, but let's just say 200 for 6 months of coaching. I was like, oh, I am going to do, I want to say I ended up doing like 297 for 3 months or something like that. Like, I think I reduced the time I was working with them to quote unquote, force them to re-up with me more. And that was a big thing. Now I'm real curious. I want to go back and look at it in time, but I do remember it being like 297 in 2019. No, this is, yeah. No, was it? Anyway, I feel like I either had something that was for $1,000. There's something, y'all. I know I should have looked at my notes before this, but there was something I think for, maybe I asked people if they wanted to sign up with me for something that got them closer to, for 6 months, which would get me closer, right? It'd be like 600 or something. And I did that all of 2019, and I finished 2019 at 15,000. Oh, I know what changed. I know what changed now. Yes, that's what I did for 3 months. I had that summer of 2019, I got a new job in Maryland, and I went through a breakup, and I was just like, it felt like a new start again. It felt like I had, like, when I graduated and I moved to Maryland, I was like, this is time for new me. Like, I'm going to really work on my mindset so much that nothing could stop me. Mind over matter, whatever. And that fall, two powerful things happened. One, I did increase my price because I started to believe that you know what, y'all, bless you if you're still listening, because I'm just a yapping and y'all are here with me, and I just want to say shout out to you. But what I started to believe was that it's more in service of the client for the price to be higher than it is about my fear of raising the price. That started to come more clear. Like, it wasn't all the way there, but it was starting to become clear. And then 2, I started playing around with the idea of having a group program again, because now I'm working with at least 10 or 15 one-on-one clients, and I'm getting exhausted. Plus, I feel like I am repeating myself constantly, and the podcast was really picking up traction. And so more and more people were finding out about me. But I was just like, I'm doing so much work, and I don't feel like I'm getting anything back in return, or like getting as much back in return. And before I broke up with my boyfriend, I remember him being like, your story is so powerful. You just need to tell it more and stop being so afraid. Also, to my credit, though, I was showing up online now. I was showing my face. I was going live now. Not consistently, but we had graduated the content, which stands, I started to see more of a positive benefit from showing up more consistently, showing my face, being online, actually talking back to the people, being consistent with my podcast, and really talking about how I'm helping people. And seeing that when people paid more, they showed up differently versus those people who were trying to nickel and dime me. It was too much of a hustle. I was starting to see that and starting to think about what it could be like to have a group program. Blew my mind, because I was like, oh. And so I tested out what would later become Finish Your Dissertation, which is my signature offer on the dissertation side of things. I was testing that out at the end of 2019. When I saw the response from me, quote unquote, testing out the Finish Your Dissertation, I was like, oh, I need to increase my price. What hit me was that whether I like it or not, people associate price with value. If something is only $200 for 3 or 6 months of coaching, it will cause people to question, well, what's wrong with it? Why is it so low? If it's as good as she says it is, then why is it so low? She's getting results. People can't stop singing her praises, but why is her prices so low? It makes us as humans go, huh? I didn't see that at first. All I could see was I don't want to take advantage of people. That was my big thing. I don't want people to think I'm just money hungry. No, I was not communicating clearly what I was offering people. Also, I kept thinking about in order for the math equation to work, meaning in order to get to $100,000 a year, I can't keep working with people one-on-one for $200. The math will never math. I don't have enough hours in a day. It's not going to work. So either this price has to go up or I need a whole different offer or product. So I did all this to say to get to by the end of 2019, I was more clear than ever. Oh, these prices need to increase. And so when I get into the top of 2020, I make what is my biggest investment to date. I invest $5,000 I don't even know what you would call it, an intensive, a 6-week intensive with a coach. Because I was like, this is a year I'm making $100,000. So what is 5,000 to the 100,000? And because I made that investment, that was a third thing that really pushed me over the hill of you got to raise your prices. I raised it to $1,000 to work with me privately. But let me tell you why I'm proud of that $1,000. Right, we're talking about from somebody who went from $56 to work with them for 6 months to $1,000 to work with them for 3 months. And I remember people being like, I don't know if I could do it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not for you because I got other sales calls booked. This is not me of 2017 or 2018 trying to beg people to get on a webinar. People are actually booking calls now. People actually want to work with me. So if you don't want to, you don't have to. You don't have to. And I want to say the biggest client I have in terms of money in 2020 was a $20,000 offer. I share all of this and I will find a more succinct way to do this, but I share all this to say we all have a starting point. Fear is very real in terms of raising the price, but really what helped me to get over it was going through the steps, doing what I could. Even if I couldn't do what my coach was telling me, the price that she was telling me, I was like, but where can I start? Can I just say a number? What is a number I could say that I won't pass out and starting there? Letting the experience build up of letting it catch up to my nervous system that eventually I'm going to see that I'm putting out way more than the price is giving to me. And that's going to encourage me to increase it. And consistently working on delivering value and getting people proven results, consistent results, and seeing that play out over what is this, a 3-year period? I got to 100K in 2020. I don't get there without the 2017 me who had holes in their shoes and didn't have enough money to get to their job. I don't get there without 2018 me who's like, okay, I got this new place, but I'm on this webinar, nobody showed up and my friends are laughing at me. I don't get there without 2019 me who is waking up right at 3:30 in the morning. All of those things helped me to get over the fear. Fear isn't something, sometimes we can just be like, I'm going to do it anyway. But sometimes that fear is so great that it takes us multiple tiny steps. So if you're listening to this and you still can't even get to, saying a number that your coach is telling you, or you have some back and forth about price, I get it. Eventually, if you stay at this long enough, your circumstances will force you to increase your price. Or somebody like me will come along and be like, if you don't increase your price, because the way I'm with clients now, I'm like, ooh, I've been there, girl. And let me tell you, I know exactly what you're thinking. I know exactly why you think you can't raise your price, but we about to sit and talk this out. Because if I had somebody who had the patience enough and the understanding of anxiety and who understood neurodivergence, and if they could talk to me in a way that I could have understood, I would have raised my price. But because I just had people giving me demands, but not really telling me why, I wasn't changing my price. So when I'm sitting with clients now, I'm like, no, we're going to talk this through. by the end of the conversation, by the end of one conversation, they still may not change their price, but they will start to, the wheels will start to turn. And usually within a week or two, those prices go up. Now I'm attracting clients who I'm like, okay, too much dip on your chip. Why is your price that much? But for my friends who are on the other end of the spectrum, I'm like, oh yeah, let's work through that because I've been there. Because I know what it's like to feel like you're disappointing everyone, and but you also see all these people who are just feel like they're just, I just felt people were flying ahead of me. And I kept saying, if I could make $1,000 from one person, I would never question if I had what it takes. You know what? You know what? I'm going to end it for today because we're already over 40 minutes and I wanted to keep these short. But yeah, that's my story about my fear and my prices. And it's still something that I work through. It's just at different levels now, but it's real. Okay. If you have any questions, let me know and I would love to answer it on a future podcast episode. But yeah, what about you? Do you have a fear? You have a fear of pricing or a fear of charging more? Let me know. Let me know on Instagram, y'all. And let's keep talking. And I will talk to y'all next time.